My name is Sari van Poelje. I'm the director of Intact Academy and of Team Agility. Within Intact Academy, we have coaching programs from beginner to advanced, from executive coach to team coach to supervisor to business coach. In Team Agility, we help businesses innovate more quickly than their products to accelerate time to market. This is more important than ever in the world today. And I'm very, very happy to be able to do that for my clients, startups, family businesses, and multinationals. In this series of vlogs, I want to talk about executive coaching. I've been practicing as an executive coach and even doing executive coaching for more than 35 years. So I've been doing more than practicing is what I mean. So in the last vlog, we talked about what is executive coaching and at what levels can you do that. In this one, I want to talk about what steps do you take? What is a model of executive coaching? And again, here, there are so many models around, so many books about it. Some of them are good, a lot of them are bad, by the way. So you really have to discern what you want to read about this. I've read many, many books on this, and I've kind of synthesized in a step model, a 5-step model of executive coaching. The synthesis doesn't mean that that's the linear process you go through, because in actual fact, executive coaching, as all coaching processes, it's human, deeply human process, and that means it's iterative, repetitive. Sometimes you fall back into earlier stages. So what I'm going to present to you is not a linear model, and it's not one-dimensional or even two-dimensional. It's actually three-dimensional. You can think of it as strands of DNA moving in and out, where the process of personal development can be at a different pace than a process of professional development. But in the end, as I said in my last vlog, you want people to know who they are as they are doing a role. So this personal and professional development weaves in and out all the time. If I would present to you this 5-step model, it would be, you start with contact. I'll just name them. You start with contact, then you go to contract, then you go to a systemic assessment. That's really important in executive coaching. It's not just about me and the client, it's about me, the client, and the context. Then we go to intervention and evaluation. That's the easiest way I know to tell you what steps I take. Each step is not only a moment in time, it's a process that goes throughout the whole encounter in the coaching. So if you look at me, I usually contract for 10 sessions where people can say, I'm done at the 5th session. Most people do transformative change within 10, maximum 15 sessions. I think as a coach, executive coach, you have a sell-by date. So it's not something in my world that you should become part of the furniture, because when you become part of the furniture, you're part of the problem. So for me, an executive coach intervention is something that is short, sharp, focused. If they come back after 3 years, which they often do, or 5 years, and they say, hey, 5 years ago you really helped me, I've got a different problem now, that's fine. But I tend to be very, very contractual about how long I stay. Each step that I named, the 5 steps, are actually processes as well. So when I say contact is a step, obviously I don't mean you're out of contact the rest of the process. What I mean is you start contact from the moment you pick up the phone, because usually people call me or they email me. From that moment you're in contact, and that goes through the entire process. Obviously the value or the way you have contact changes over time as you get to know each other better. You start to discern what is yours, what's the other person, where are you in transference or counter-transference. We'll talk about that later. But the fact that the contact starts right at the beginning is important to note. The same thing goes for contracting. Contracting is a step, but it's also a process. So the contracting takes place after the contact, but it's actually something you do all the time. So in executive coaching, you have a contract for all the sessions, but you've also got a contract per session. And each contract, and even per moment, people may say, oh, I understand that. Can we go on to the next layer of the problem? But even then, these small session contracts, or even moment by moment contracts, agreements of what you're doing together, they have to be in relationship to the bigger contract you made. And maybe even above that, the existential contract you have between the executive coach and the client, where you say, I'm here also for your well-being. So above everything else, doctors say do no harm, but if you, and if you can do no harm, at least do good, something like that. But it's the same for executive coaches. There's a higher level of contracting involved as well. The assessment part is the same. It's a step and a process. So when I say systemic assessment, you work as a coach, also as a consultant, with the information you have at that moment. You have to accept that every time you work with a client, you have imperfect data. So you will never know everything. You haven't lived their life. They know more than you do about what's going on, and that's fine. So within that step of systemic assessment, we say, okay, now after contact and contract, you've got more information. On the basis of that, you revise what you do with a client all the time. So this assessment is a step, but it's also a process that goes on throughout the executive coaching. Again, the fourth step that I mentioned, intervention, it's not something that happens in the moment. I mean, from the moment I meet someone, so from even when they pick up the phone and they say, I've got a problem, can you help me? The way you react is an intervention. I remember one guy, executive, came into my office and he was on the phone and he was, still carrying his briefcase, and he kind of nodded at me, and he was still talking to someone else. And I remember saying to him, like from the moment, I said, so after he put down the phone, which took quite a while, I said, so, is this kind of how you usually come in? And he said, yeah, I'm always busy. And I said, so when do you rest? And he said, oh, I'm special. I only sleep 4 hours a night. And I said, so when do you eat? And he said, oh, I eat when my wife or my secretary puts food in front of me. And so this went on, and I remember saying to him, because he said, I'm doing an organizational change, can you help me? And I remember saying to him, look, from what you're telling me and from the way you look, because he was gray. I mean, this guy was in his 30s, and he was, that gray pallor under his skin. And I said, I'd really love to help you with your organizational change, but the contract I want to make with you is that for the first 3 sessions, we work on your biorhythms. Because if you don't sleep properly, eat properly, rest properly, you'll get ill. And organizational change will be the last thing on your mind. So will you accept this? And he said yes, luckily. So this guy has a fantastic career, and he's thriving, and he's much healthier than he was before. But I'm telling you this anecdote because really this idea of doing an intervention only after you know everything is a fallacy, and it's a myth, because you will never know everything. You have to be working in the moment with your assessments, with your interventions, and that's why I'm saying it's a step but also a process. The same thing goes for the last step that I describe in this super simple model, and that's evaluation. Now, evaluation and goodbyes are just as important as hellos in executive coaching, as in life. So people usually tend to spend more time thinking about how to say hello than how to say goodbye. And perhaps that's really out of balance in our world today. But in executive coaching, one of the really important things is to help clients evaluate and to say goodbye. A lot of the executives I have, in my coaching practice at least, do not say goodbye very well. They don't say goodbye very well to their people, to their roles, to their work every day when they come home. And so this step within the executive coaching is a didactic step as well, as are all the steps. I model what I hope that they will learn. But again, here, evaluation and saying goodbye, termination, evaluation and termination is actually it, is not just a step, it's a process. And you do that all the time. Every time a client comes in, every time a client leaves. So we're going to be talking about each of these steps in turn, because it's really important to understand what to do as an executive coach during the process of coaching. Think about it. What do you do and what steps do you take during your executive coaching processes?